We are so close to the season starting. Thank goodness.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first or second listen every single day. It's a happy hour edition of the show. Earlier this week, I hopped on Auburn Opelika this morning with my very good friend, Ben Taylor. We discuss media days. We discuss recruiting. We discuss all sorts of stuff. Here we go.
SEC Media Days. This is the unofficial kickoff, Zach, of football season is here, even though it's really not here. Everybody thinks it is once SEC Media Days take place.
Well, I mean, look, after we get back from Dallas, we'll blink. It'll be a week and a half or so, and I think you're going to start seeing some fall camps start in late July. All of them will start by early August. I mean, it's pretty close. Like, I know we like to say it's the unofficial start, but I mean, it is. I think I mean, we're here. We're almost to the start of football season.
And, of course, we all need to bow down to Oklahoma and Texas. And the reason being is we've decided to put the SEC Media Days in Dallas, which is only probably a stone's throw away from Los Angeles, California. So I'm glad that everybody is going to be heading west to Texas in order to accommodate the Longhorns and the Sooners. However, I say that in jest because there are two extra teams that will be at SEC Media Days this year. So it should add to a little bit of pageantry that we may see.
Yeah, it's going to be a historic one. And we've talked about the impact of college football expansion across the entire country. And now we finally get to see it. We saw a little bit with the Big 12, with Houston, UCF, Cincinnati, that crew, BYU, all going into that conference. But now this year we get to see it up close and personal with Texas and Oklahoma. Then obviously the Big Ten's added anybody who has a pulse to their conference. And so I think the rest of this, we forget because it happened so long ago, but Texas and Oklahoma were first, and then the Big 12 and the Big 10, they reacted. They responded. And so it happened a few weeks before those media days in Atlanta. So I guess 2 years ago, where USC and UCLA, the news broke that they were going to join the Big 10. And Commissioner Sankey was asked pretty early on in his opening press conference of, okay, the Big 10 stocking up. What's the SEC going to do? And I mean, it was kind of baller. It was kind of awesome. He was just like, it took them this long for them to respond to us getting Texas and Oklahoma. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. It's just, it happened so long. We've been talking about this for years, literally for years. Media days were still in Hoover every year when this happened and this news broke. And that seems like ages ago. It's so fun that it's finally here and they're officially in the league at the start of this month. And next week in Dallas, it's going to be real. And seeing Sark up there and seeing Venables, address the media, it's going to be kind of surreal, I think. And I'm sure it's going to definitely feel that way for Texas and Oklahoma people.
It's going to feel that way for Alabama people because Nick Saban is not going to be on the podium.
I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, that's true. There's been so much attention to Texas and Oklahoma. But yeah, an SEC Media Days without Nick Saban. Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if they'll be without. Now with his contract with ESPN, I just think that's going to be super awkward if he is there with Kalen DeBoer because there's already the comparison. And the last thing I think you need to do is have Saban in the room with DeBoer at the same time. But who knows what ESPN and the SEC network may try to do in order to make that happen with his new employment they're in the same room right now. Saban still got his office in the facility, so I'm sure they
know what he was signing up for. I mean, I mean, there's no way he took that job wanting to kick Nick Saban out. Like, there's just no way. So I don't know. I don't think it'll be awkward.
You mentioned how long this has been in the works. They're already talking about more expansion as well. So there's already been names that have been floated out there from maybe the ACC or something of that nature. So any surprises we expect to see out of SEC Media Days? That's when we got this a few years ago. They went up there and they were like, hey, welcome Texas and Oklahoma. Do we get a welcome Clemson and Florida State? Do we get a welcome North Carolina and Duke?
Be insane. That would be insane. I would love for the SEC to go to 20, but I mean, you could say what you want about Sankey, and I think he's done a great job as kind of being the leader, the commissioner of the SEC. his message has been pretty consistent since Texas and Oklahoma came in, is that we're good at 16. Then you see the Big 10 get like 35 teams. I'm joking. I think I've got 18. And I think the Big 12 has 18 as well. And his response is, we're good with 16. We want to stay, geography was important to him. He said that last year. I promise you he'll say it next week. And it just kind of limits you. But all the schools you just said would make sense from a geography point of view. Duke and North Carolina, Florida State and Clemson. I want Miami and Georgia Tech. If it was up to me and the SEC could go to 20 teams, I would want Miami, Georgia Tech, Clemson, and FSU. I think that would be, I think all of those schools kind of have SEC vibes to it. Georgia Tech, you get all that Atlanta market. And it establishes two rivalries. You get Auburn and Georgia Tech back, and you get Georgia Tech and Georgia back. I think that would be big. You bring in a Clemson, you get to preserve that South Carolina-Clemson rivalry, and it bails out those teams. And it would effectively kill the ACC.
From an Auburn standpoint, Payton Thorne did not make the trip last year to SEC Media Days. I told the story earlier this week where I said the reason I think that took place is, number one, his newness to the program as far as last year was concerned. Number two, I think that the staff was trying to take guys out there or take guys to the SEC Media Days that you would want your daughter to date, that would put on a good presentation for the Auburn family, for the staff, for everybody that represents Auburn, and that's what they did. However, this year, after Freeze has been here a while, after Thorne's been here a while, it looks like Payton Thorne's going to be there. Some people are saying, why would they do that? I think a starting quarterback needs to be at the podium whenever SEC Media Days roll around. But that's just my opinion. He's going to be taking bullets left and right when fall rolls around. Might as well take them now.
Oh, can you imagine if they didn't take Payton, what the storylines would be? Oh, it's that bad. Oh, Freeze doesn't trust them. Oh, does Hank Brown have a chance of winning the job from him? I mean, all of those, I think you had to take him. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. Like, we don't know what he's been doing this offseason. I've heard good things from folks that I've talked to, but I heard good things last year too, so who knows? But in regards to, all of these folks have been bashing him all off season and really all of last season too. Let him go face to face with him. Let's see how. I bet they treat him a lot nicer when they're asking him questions next week.
And it's just not Payton Thorne. Of course, they end up taking 3 players, and the other 2 who are going to be who?
Yeah, Eugene Asante, the linebacker, of course, and then Keldric Falk, who's going to be the first true sophomore ever to go represent Auburn at SEC Media Days. Pretty cool.
Asante is phenomenal to me that he's going to be going, and the reason being is just because he's one of my favorite Auburn players probably ever, because of his attitude and the way he handles himself. The skit that he did last year prior to the season where he goes around saying, let's go on campus. I mean, that's one of those where anybody that's ever attended Auburn could totally appreciate that he did that, and he did it in full uniform. This is a guy that you definitely want repping Auburn wherever you go.
I think so. Yeah. And Charlie Five and I talked about this on the show yesterday, where he's going to be beloved. And I think there's probably a lot of SEC football fans or fans of an SEC team that don't know a whole lot about Eugene Asante, and they're about to, and they're going to walk away from, interacting with him in a better mood with a smile on their face. And they're going to say, wow, yeah, I like that guy. And he's a pretty good football player too.
Yeah. And then Keldric Falk, of course, you talked about it. One of the youngest to ever go to SEC Media Days. I kind of wonder what went through the coach's mind in order to make that happen.
You got to think there's a message involved here. One of, he was Hugh Freeze's first and lone 5-star in that first class when he took over, and had a month to kind of build it and put it together. He was that first big win. And there were other guys too, like when they flipped Canley from Ohio State or Connor Lew from Miami. But Keldric was the big one. That was the big one where they kind of slid in the last second and did everything it took to get him away from FSU. And now they get to reap the benefits of that. I think this is a message to other 5-stars, even guys that are currently on the team, where I don't care how old you are. If you're good, you're talented, and you want to play football at Auburn, and you want to be a leader, you can be. You can be early here. And I think he's doing that with Keldric. And just talking to everybody about Keldric, if you ask a defensive player, who's going to stand out, they can't quit saying great things about Keldric, and it's been that way since he stepped foot on campus. This isn't just this offseason. It was all last year too. So there's a lot of pressure on Keldric, Falk. I think there's a lot of questions about Auburn's pass rush. But if Keldric develops at the pace where a typical 5-star does, Auburn's going to be in a great spot, in great shape with Keldric at that strong side defensive end role opposite Jalen McLeod. And I think Freeze is saying, like, hey, you're ready for the pressure. You're ready to represent your school. Let's do this thing.
Will Auburn have a trap game that's coming up? Plus, is Hugh Freeze one of the worst coaches in the Southeastern Conference? We shall find out. But first, this.
Yeah. Oh, great tease, Ben. Great tease. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sports book. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. I'm sure you're the same way. But the playoffs are done in all the major sports, and all we've got right now is Major League Baseball, which is fun, but FanDuel knows that you want more. So this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. Every single day, there's something for someone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. Ben, you laid it out there. You laid it out there perfectly. Auburn has been kind of labeled as, okay, their big trap game early on, this is from 247, is Arkansas. The SEC opener at home, the 4th game of the season against the Arkansas Razorbacks.
That, number one, is phenomenal to me. You and I have had this discussion.
Yeah.
I think Arkansas is awful. I understand everybody has some sort of a trap game. Sure. I just, for some reason, don't think that it's Arkansas. And I think that Arkansas is not going to do well at all this year. And maybe that's just from what I saw last year. That's the eye test. Maybe they've got something up their sleeve that I don't know about. Maybe they've had some transfers within the program that have come in and are going to make a huge difference that I just don't know about. But that kind of baffles me that that's the trap game. Not saying that Oklahoma is a trap game, but I think with Oklahoma coming here and playing in Jordan-Hare, and it's their first time being on the road in Jordan-Hare, as far as a conference game is concerned as well, and the pageantry and the heat that will be behind that, I would think, even though Oklahoma is going to be ranked higher than Arkansas, I still would call something like an Oklahoma trap game, because that is one that I actually have Auburn winning.
Yeah, I wonder if it's you have Auburn beating Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm not quite there. I'm close, but I'm not quite there yet. But I think Texas A&M is a big trap game because you play the Iron Bowl shortly after that. I think right now I'm ready to pick Auburn to beat Texas A&M. So yeah, his name is the author is Carter Bonds. He writes for 247. He went through every SEC team and detailed their trap game. And so for Auburn, he said Arkansas. And he said Auburn has a chance to get the ball rolling in the early portion of its schedule, as it may be favored in each of its first 4 games. Should be. The contest against Arkansas included. What follows, though, are 2 of the toughest matchups of the year. Oklahoma and Georgia on September 28th and October 5th are ones that they're going to be looking forward to. So, I mean, that's what a trap game is. You play a game that you're against somebody you're supposed to beat, and then you're focused on the big game the following week. So, I get that. I get the argument of, okay, Arkansas does fit that criteria, but to me, I just don't see Auburn losing that one. I see Auburn possibly falling into a trap game scenario against a Vanderbilt or a Texas A&M more than this one.
A&M makes a whole lot of sense, and the reason being is because I understand that Jimbo's gone. I understand that they've had some guys head out of the program. However, let's keep in mind how many 5-stars are still on that roster. And you and I have said it before. They are 5-stars for a reason whenever they come out of high school. And he was able to get some of those. And they were able to keep some of those. Not all of them left the program. And if all of a sudden their talent decides to show up on the field, they can be a trap game for anybody they face in the Southeastern Conference this year.
Sure. Yeah, and then in this article where he goes through every team, he had Auburn as Missouri's trap game. So I think that's interesting. Missouri plays, I believe they play Alabama the following week. And so if you're Missouri, you think internally, if it goes the way the season goes the way we think it will for Missouri, you pitch it to your team. It's like if you beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa, you're a college football playoff team. That's what you're saying in Missouri. And so do you possibly look past Auburn in that scenario? Who knows?
And don't get me wrong. I think they deserve all the respect. I think that they overachieved, and I think that they have a good football program. Are we giving Missouri way too much credit this year than what they deserve? Because there are a lot of people that just have them up there at the top echelon of the SEC, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know if we're quite there yet, but maybe their schedule lends to it. I'm not sure.
I mean, they're a good team. They are a good team. They've got a top 3 SEC quarterback. They have a top 3 SEC wide receiver. They probably have a top 3 running back. Their O-line's fine. Like, there's a lot to like about Missouri. There's a lot to like. Are we overhyping them because they're Missouri? And it's kind of the trendy, fun thing, and they won a lot of games a year ago? Maybe. That absolutely maybe. Because like I think Ole Miss is better. I think Texas is better. I think Alabama's better. I think Georgia's better. So, and I think most people would say that. But like, is Missouri the 5th or 6th best team in the conference? Probably. They probably are, and I think that's fair. I think that's what most people are saying they are.
Before we go, Hugh Freeze deemed one of the duds in the Southeastern Conference as far as coach is concerned. That's according to Will Backus. That's not according to Ben and Zach. That is according to Will Backus of CBS Sports, who wrote a ranking in every SEC coach. And his quote, Freeze's first year on the Plains was a bit of a dud. Okay, first and foremost, I disagree with that. And the reason being, we didn't win the games that we wanted to as far as an Auburn fan base is concerned. However, with what disarray that Auburn was left in after the Potato Gang ended up, the Potato Posse, whatever you want to call them, Tater Tots left the state of Alabama, then that's the cards that got dealt. So it said his first year on the Plains was a dud. Most knew that at least a slight rebuild was in order, given the roster he inherited. Former Ole Miss boss has set out to improve the talent across the board, particularly along the line of scrimmage, blah, blah, blah. Goes on and on. Is he one of the bottom-tiered SEC coaches, or is he a better coach than what they're giving him credit for and an even better recruiter than probably what people give him credit for?
Yeah, I mean, you hire Hugh Freeze to recruit, and it hasn't really been long enough to reap the benefits of that. So to say last year was a dud, you need to say on the field, I think, or in the wins and losses category. Like, you can't just say that as a blanket statement. They've got him above Brent Venables at Oklahoma, which I think I agree with. They got him above Shane Beamer at South Carolina. I don't think he'll be there next year. Got him above Billy Napier at Florida. I don't think Napier will be there next year. Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I think he's gone after the season. Clark Lee at Vandy and Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. Of course, that's his first season here. So we'll see. 10 seems low. Like Elko, the first-year head coach at Texas A&M. Like, I think Free should be ahead of Elko. And then Josh Heupel at 8. I mean, I think they're kind of in the same tier right now. Eli Drinkwitz is at 7, which you just kind of talked about with Missouri. Are we overranking them? And the Mark Stoops at 6 at Kentucky. That seems high to me. But
that's just phenomenal that he every year is considered the best coach in the country, and yet they still can lose as many games as they do.
I mean, I don't think he's ever beat an SEC team with a winning record.
But yeah, he's considered one of the top tier coaches every year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just benefited from the SEC East being a dumpster for the last decade and Kentucky being decent, while Florida and Tennessee for most of the last 10 years haven't been as good as they have been historically. So, I mean, the timing's great for them, but how we're all acting like it's some elite program is silly to me. I don't buy it.
What's fascinating, and this is the way too early predictions when you look at this particular ranking system that he has, 12, 13, 14, and 15 could all be gone at the end of the year.
Yeah.
When you go ahead and you start talking about coaching turnovers or turnover within the Southeastern Conference, and you can go ahead and look at 4, and we haven't even had SEC Media Days yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's just that's odd to me.
Some of those I'm surprised they didn't let go. Specifically,
well, and
Pittman.
That's probably Pittman. Well, Pittman and honestly Napier. I'm honestly shocked he's made it as long as he has, because that just is nobody in Florida likes him apparently except for the administration and staff.
Well, whoever wrote his contract must like him because he's about to get a lot of money when they let him go. So, good for
I know,
him.
man.
Good for him. But yeah, I think Freeze at 10 is too low. As always, thank you for having me, Ben. Be sure to check him out 6 to 9 every single morning on WANI if you're in the Auburn, Opelika, Lee County area. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.